After 4 years of development, the academic staff at the University of Auckland have overwhelmingly rejected a freedom of expression and academic freedom policy. Now, the Free Speech Union did a review of the free speech policies at different organisations and gave Auckland University's policy attempt an epic fail. But it turns out so has the University Senate. Stephanie Martin is a Stakeholder Relationships Manager at the Free Speech Union. She joins us now. Kia ora, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Better, perhaps, than Auckland University in this one. I mean, I suppose it's all very well for the Free Speech Union to be pointing out problems with free speech. That's actually what you do. But when the university hierarchy agrees with your views, basically, that this is a rubbish policy, it's a waste of 4 years' effort, it's a waste of university resources, fail, please see me, back to the drawing board, really.
Yes, that's how it certainly appears. It is quite a remarkable event, actually. It's quite a remarkable thing that they've spent so long in development of a policy that their staff have so overwhelmingly rejected. It sort of raises a lot of questions, I think, about how exactly they've come to this point and what exactly the process has been.
I mean, how can you get this wrong? Freedom of expression and, the freedom of the staff academically, that doesn't sound like an overly complicated concept, but it kind of seems to have come out backwards somehow.
Yes, well, it shouldn't be. And there, you hear sometimes that these things sort of need to be in there now, these concerns about health and safety and things like this. But they're sort of used as smoke screens, and they're not necessary because we can see that other universities have perfectly well created policies that don't include those things. So, for example, the one that came out of Otago University is excellent, and there's no mention of these sorts of things that we see in the Auckland University one and others as well.
It is a rare occasion that the Auckland University Senate and the Free Speech Union are in agreement on this one. What are you guys agreeing on? What is so awful about this freedom policy?
Well, the sense that I have is just that there is a general sense that if the policy were to be introduced, it would actually inhibit staff's freedom of speech and freedom of expression and academic freedom. And it's quite a remarkable thing, again, that if they introduce this policy, it would actually come out worse for them. Their speech rights would actually be further inhibited by this policy than they would if the policy were not in existence, because it introduces restrictions on their speech that currently aren't anywhere in policy. So it seems to me that the staff are just recognizing that, and academic staff are saying, actually, it's not good enough, and actually we need to be operating in a climate where academic freedom is actually guaranteed to us to be able to do their job as critic and conscious of society.
One of the phrases which seems to trump freedom, and particularly freedom of speech in the document, is well-being. Well-being is this catch-all category which kind of says anything which we think might cause students to be upset or, I don't know, challenged to think outside of their echo chambers, well, we're going to put a stop to that. Is this part of the problem here, Steph?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's another one of those smokescreen words, I would say. I mean, well-being is so inherently subjective. It's very difficult to imagine how this would actually be carried out in a policy.
Yeah.
I mean, the effect of it would be that you're asking staff and students to predict essentially what might potentially negatively impact someone's well-being, right? And that's everyone. So if you think about it in context, if you're sitting in a tutorial and you're a student and you're thinking, well, I have to be sort of moderating everything that I say on the basis of not negatively impacting the well-being at all of anyone around me, it's really going to inhibit what you feel as though you can say. And we know that these sorts of claims to the harm of speech have been used in attempts in the past to shut down open discourse. So that's a serious concern as well.
It does seem to be the opposite of what a university should do, that we go to universities, or we send our children to universities so they can wrestle with complex ideas, so they can have one good idea push against the other, where they can learn new things that they didn't know beforehand, where they can be exposed to a variety of different types of thinking, and also to learn the process of critical thinking, how to look an idea and critique it to see whether or not it's worthwhile. All of this seems to be out the window at Auckland University.
Absolutely. Well, not yet. And hopefully this will prevent that from being the case. But certainly it's hard to imagine how you hear sometimes the phrase contest of ideas about a university. A university should be able to be, a contest of ideas should take place on a university campus. It's hard to imagine how a contest of ideas can take place if everyone is above all concerned with preventing potential harm to somebody else.
Yeah.
It's difficult to imagine how that could possibly be achieved. And then, there are kind of flow-on effects of that. How are we supposed to further knowledge without testing and contesting the knowledge that we currently have?
Yeah.
So it really impedes on again, another key role of the university to be sort of advancing our knowledge for society's sake,
Exactly. And hey, if somebody says something which you disagree with, or you reject, or even you're offended by, having the cognitive capacity to push back on that idea and have a reason for what you believe. This is what should be happening at universities.
Absolutely. And it's actually stipulated in the Education and Training Act. Sorry, I think this is actually just a really important point to make. In the Education and Training Act, it says that there should be, academic freedom should be prevented in order to enable for difficult ideas to be talked about.
Yeah.
Controversial ideas is the phrase that's used in the Act. And it's difficult to understand how exactly this policy would be in keeping with that.
Controversial ideas might offend somebody, and now we're kind of in the circular argument. Steph, if you could talk us through what this means. Is this like, 4 years, what a waste of time and money? Is this recommended policy just thrown out now? Is it back to the drawing board? What next for University of Auckland?
Well, it really depends on what exactly council are meeting on Wednesday, and there'll be a conversation, I imagine, around what they're going to do next and how they're going to approach this, because they can't obviously, they can, if they choose to, just sort of put this to the side and continue on anyway, what's happened at Senate. But really what we're trying to encourage in speaking out about this is that council really take the advice of the academics seriously and hear what they're saying and hear what they're asking for, which is obviously a more open academic freedom environment where they have the freedom to express their ideas and to do and these things that are sit underneath of them being able to do their job.
Yeah.
So it will depend really on what council choose to do with it. Mm-hmm. Something that would be a really good thing that they could do is consider, they've already taken a lot of time, they've already used a lot of money, right?
Yep.
So it seems to me that they really need to move on something quite quickly. Mm-hmm. There are good examples, like I mentioned, the University of Otago freedom of expression policy that they've already developed. Mm-hmm. There's no reason why they couldn't then have conversations with Otago about using some of those ideas. There's good examples out there of what they could incorporate. So what I would be thinking is that if there are good models already, why not try and use some of those?
Yeah, exactly. That would take some people being perhaps a little bit humble and ignoring rivalries between Auckland University and Otago University and all of that type of stuff. Although, interestingly, if the academics, if the lecturers, the professors at Auckland University aren't happy with their academic freedom at Auckland, Otago might be a good option for them next semester, right?
Yes, well, you'd be thinking, I would be thinking that would, if I was sitting on council, that would be a concern that I would be having is actually keeping my staff there. Yeah. Because if they're not going to protect them with this kind of academic freedom environment, then certainly I would imagine that there would be staff asking real questions about that at this point.
In terms of the questions, what sort of questions should be asked about this? We've mentioned a couple of times, a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of money being spent on this at a time when all tertiary institutions being required to tighten their belts and cut courses. What should be the response not only from the staff, but perhaps from students at Auckland University to ensure, I suppose, that Auckland Uni makes the right decision and finds a positive way forward here?
Well, I think we need some transparency and we need some accountability, right? We need to understand exactly how it is that they've come to this point and what exactly the process has been to get us here. I think there needs to be a lot more transparency around these processes. And likewise, there needs to be some accountability, right? How has this happened? So that I think that's really what staff and students, as well as, of course, making the demands around actually getting a policy that's going to fulfill authentic academic freedom and freedom of expression. I also think there needs to be serious questions around what are the structural processes that have allowed this to happen, and are they actually fit for purpose if they're creating situations like this?
Now, of course, nothing wrong with spending time and resources on creating policies to keep students safe and to create a positive academic environment. That's something which university students and universities should be focused on, but have got it significantly wrong in this regard. For people that are concerned about this, is this something that the general public can have their say on, or is this something that you would encourage more of the people directly involved, either as students or staff at Auckland University, to raise concerns on, Steph?
I think probably primarily it's this. At this point in time, it's on staff and students to kind of be really pushing for this and ensuring that it's not let go of. However, I'm also aware that there is sort of a political discourse going on at the moment around the creation of these policies and how academic freedom is actually being upheld from a legal standpoint, because it seems that if things like this are happening, then actually, as I mentioned before, the Education and Training Act makes stipulations that this seems to be out of step with. So I think if we were to see some sort of political movement in that space around legislative tightening or something to that effect, that would be the point in time for the public to get behind that.
Well, hey, interesting development in this regard, and generally good news. Thank you so much for the work that you do at the Free Speech Union, fsu.nz. For more information about that, Steph, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Lovely to talk with you.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.